a revolution for girls to change the world through STEM. Their vision is for all girls, especially those of low income and girls of color, to have the opportunity to explore the wonders of STEM, be inspired by women role models, enroll in STEM courses, earn STEM degrees, and pursue STEM careers. Together, our partnership continues to drive awareness to the importance of STEM education for underrepresented populations. Their programs trigger an increased curiosity through deliberate education, access, and curriculum within the minds of diverse students. Techbridge recognizes that there are numerous ways that diversity in STEM access and inclusion can be improved. And a little later in the program, I'll share some examples of the collaborative and creative programming where we bring our middle school girls together throughout the year.
Thank you, Anita. As Anita said, I'm Cassie Herrera. I use she, her pronouns. And before we get started today, we wanted to just begin by honoring the original people of the land Techbridge Girls is based on, Chochenyo, which is the unceded land of the Holani people. We begin by paying respect to the native elders and stewards of this land, past, present, and future. So this land acknowledgement I just shared is how we begin one of our Techbridge Girls programming lessons. And we invite you to do land acknowledgements at any of the gatherings that you have with your youth or anyone that you're meeting with. We assert that Indigenous history is not a story of the past, that Indigenous peoples, scholars, scientists, and families are still impacting their lands. And as we learn in Techbridge Girls programming, shaping the future of STEM. For more information on land acknowledgements, check out this backgrounder document that we'll put the chat in the link in just a moment, and short video to build up your understanding. In addition, if you're already using land acknowledgements in your place of profession, I invite you to share those resources in the chat as well.
Thank you, Cassie. So now we're just going to run a little bit through our agenda for today. We're going to start with just a short and sweet icebreaker. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about who Techbridge Girls is and our why. Thank you, Anita, for introducing us to some of that information. And then we're going to go a bit into one of our critical parts of our curriculum framework, and that's being STEM. We're going to talk about our curriculum framework in general, but we're really going to home into the being STEM portion of it. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how we engage in role models, and then we're going to close. So first, we're just going to start with who's in the room. If you all have your cell phones with you, or you can also just follow slido.com and then enter the code just to get a quick idea of who is in the room. You can scan the QR code with your phone, or you can just go on slido.com and enter that code and just quickly answer which of these categories you fall under. And if it's other, please do feel free to type that in the chat as well. Okay. Got about 5 responses. It looks like we have a majority of traditional school educators, some OST educators in the room. Nice. Okay, starting to even out a bit. Just gonna wait a couple more seconds to get some more responses in for those of you who would like to respond. Awesome, that's good to know. I think you all are in the right room. Okay, so let's just do a quick icebreaker. We're just gonna share our name and pronouns, and then we're gonna share what led you to this workshop. There are a host of different workshops that are happening at this moment, so we just wanna know what led you to this particular workshop so we could be sure that we are addressing or, just satisfying your needs. So again, just your name, pronouns, and what led you to this workshop. I can start. I am Cynthia. My pronouns are she and her. And I was led to this workshop because I am facilitating it. And it's a topic that I think along with my team members are super, super passionate about. And I will bounce it to Alyssa.
Hi, my name's Alyssa. I'm she, her pronouns, and I was drawn to this workshop because inclusivity and equity has become an important topic at the library I work at. And I was really interested in learning more about how to incorporate that with STEM, our upcoming STEM programs that we're hoping to to implement in the future.
Nice, definitely think you're in the right room. I hope we'll be able to address some of those questions for you. Alyssa, do you want to choose who you would like to go next?
I guess the first name I see is Sarah McLernan.
Sarah uses she, her pronouns, and she's just generally interested in this topic. Christina, she teaches at an all-girls high school. She uses she and her pronouns. Priscilla uses she and her pronouns. She says that her public library is always interested in how they can make their programs more equitable. Let's see what else we got in the chat. No worries, if you have mic issues, please also do feel free to just throw it in the chat. Would anyone else like to volunteer your pronouns and what led you to this chat before we move on? Kelly, let's hear from you.
Good morning. Excuse me. I use she, her pronouns as well. And I am active in my school district on our district equity team. And I also am part of the California Teachers Association equity team in my area and am very interested in furthering the equity work in my school district and beyond.
Love that, love that. You're definitely in the right room. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. Megan uses she and they pronouns, a librarian at Sacramento Public Library and interested in discovering actionable ways to improve equity and inclusion in STEAM after school programs. Love it, love it, love it. We're definitely going to be touching on all of that today. All right, so we can move on, and Mita is going to tell us a bit about who is Techbridge Girls.
Hi, everyone. It is such a pleasure to join you today. I am located in the Washington, D.C. area, and it is a gorgeous fall day. We're picking pumpkins, we're eating apple cider donuts, and I am in particular remembering all of the amazing work that we feel like we can do at Techbridge Girls to serve BIPOC girls from low-income communities. We have been doing this work for about 20 years, 21 years to be exact. And we do it because of the unconscionable gaps that exist for girls from low-income communities in particular to reach and attain STEM professionalism. And why that's important is because we know that STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math careers are the careers of our actual present and absolutely our future. Many call it the fourth industrial revolution. And it also enables not only our girls to be able to contribute to solutions for our country, for our society, for themselves or communities, but also earn a living wage, earn a wage where they have economic freedom and better life choices. And when girls do better and women do better, so do families and communities. And that's really the central part of our why. But we know that in order to get to a lot of girls, Techbridge Girls has made a hard pivot recently where we've decided that the way to do that is to work with you, is to enable educators like you, those that are on the front lines, whether you're a traditional school teacher working in the after-school space or you're an after-school facilitator, either way, or you're a volunteer, we want to equip those that are working with the girls so that you, who we feel are gatekeepers, can enable our girls to reach that STEM future. We believe strongly in providing you everything you need to be able to do that. And we're excited about today. We'll talk to you a little bit about how we center our girls and a particular framework so that you're better prepared to work with these girls in particular. Thank you. And I talked a little bit about the why, and this slide gives you a little bit more about the sort of wide gaps there are in the STEM professions for girls in particular. You know, part of my job is to do outreach. And when I'm out there, folks say all the time, well, it's really hard to create a girl-only program, or what about the boys? And this is not a program where we are not talking to you about leaving anybody out, but we are also helping folks understand the critical importance of centering work, all the resources you might have, or some resources you might have on this population, because they actually are the most marginalized in the STEM, the least represented in the STEM professions. Thank you, Cynthia. And now what I wanted to also share is, in order to equip you as educators, we are very excited to share that we have 4 major programs that we now have instituted across 20+ states in the US, serving thousands of girls every year. And what we have are programs that span 3rd through 8th grade, so focusing on sort of later elementary to middle school, where we think that the needs are sometimes the greatest, the messages are sometimes strongest, that STEM is not for them, and the opportunities is the strongest. So we have a combination, and we will share with you at the end of the presentation ways that you can know a lot more about how to bring these programs into your districts or into your after-school programs or your school or your community-based center. But basically there are a combination of very intensive scaffolded lessons, complete with intensive training with folks like the amazing Cynthia and Cassie, who are my team members today, and pre-kitted materials and evaluation. We also have a program called Ignite that enables folks to conduct after-school programs or out-of-school time programs virtually if they'd like, again, with training and materials. And then in order to sometimes create access, sometimes the very first time girls have ever accessed STEM is through our one-time STEM events. And these events take place now in 11 states. They are generally co-located with colleges and universities, and they enable girls to experience a wide array of STEM workshops, as well as encounter role models. And now through the virtual world, we've also transformed some of these into virtual engagements and many events like panels and career exchanges and kind of what we call speed mentoring. So these are some of the high level programs that we have to offer, and we'd love to talk to you more about those. We have a chance. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Mika. Up next, we're going to talk a little bit about our curriculum framework and kind of the backbone of what frames all of our resources and programming. But first, I want to learn a little bit about your schooling experience. So please choose any of the boxes that apply. You're going to want to get your device out again and take a picture of this QR code, or you can go to slido.com and enter the code 735944. Now, will you just answer these questions or choose the prompts that you most identify with? So I felt seen and valued by my teachers during my K-12 experience. Teachers had low expectations of me or people who looked like me during my K-12 experience. I often had to advocate for myself. Ooh, I see a lot of things coming in and it just changed the whole order. So I'm not going to keep reading them. You can see them now. So choose any of the ones that apply. So I love seeing that so far, 100% of you have felt valued by your K-12 experience. That's wonderful. I see some of you had rigorous coursework. Some of you had experiences with teachers having low expectations for you or people who look like you. a lot of opportunity for feeling valued. Some mentioned that they went to schools that tracked students with gifted or remedial classes. Great, thank you so much. I see that growing one. Teachers had low expectations of me or people who look like me. Over 50% of people are saying that now. Wow. And then over 50% are also saying they were tracked into remedial or gifted classes. Thank you for sharing. The goal of this is to just see kind of what your experiences were like. They're probably not much different than the experiences students are having now as well. And it started off real positive at first. And now we're seeing we've all kind of settled in these places where teachers had low expectations of me and people who looked like me. So let's talk about kind of what our curriculum framework looks like, what we use to design all of our resources. So as I mentioned before, all of our resources are rooted in the Techbridge Girls Equity Framework, where we want girls to be, do, and see STEM. For us, allowing girls to be STEM requires culturally relevant opportunities that centers girls and gender expansive youth and provides a space where all girls can bring all of themselves and their identities to every program. Doing STEM for us looks like hands-on, minds-on opportunities where girls and gender expansive youth can explore, innovate, and develop a practice mindset through the engineering design process. And throughout our program, girls and gender expansive youth are using STEM to create solutions for social change that impacts their lives and the world around them. An example of this is in our Change Makers curriculum. They develop new ways to interact with technology that hears all voices, including Black, Indigenous, and all people of color. An example of a resistance story. So we do, our curriculum highlights hidden stories, stock stories, and resistance stories. Those stock stories are those ones that we all have heard of, right? So Einstein, like the draw scientist, kind of what you picture there. The hidden stories are the things that were happening underneath all of that included people of color that we just don't hear about very often. And the resistance stories are things that are happening now that are resisting those stock stories, that narrative that doesn't include Black and brown people. So we have one example of a resistance story from Joy Bulamwini. Joy notices a problem with facial recognition technologies, and through poetry is going to share with us a little about her ideas for pushing back on the standard narrative. So let's listen to Joy for just a moment.
I have a confession. Sometimes, with no one in sight, I code in a white mask. As I make whimsical systems to paint walls with our smiles or project inspirations on faces, I enjoy using code to make my ideas a reality. Computer vision powers my creations, making it possible for machines to detect faces. But at times, I'm invisible. You see, machines view the world through a coded gaze. They digest pixels from a camera in dictated ways. Using machine learning, we create training sets with examples that help the machines detect new faces. A lack of diversity in these training sets leads to limited systems that can struggle with faces like mine. To save time, code libraries for facial recognition are shared like off-the-shelf parts. Many computer vision projects share the same code. Any bias in the system propagates widely and implants a coded gaze. The coded gaze reflects the views of whoever creates the systems. All of our work reflects both our aspirations and our limitations. Can we do better? Yes, we can begin by intentionally creating inclusive code. I call this encoding. Encoding is a mindset that asks, who's missing? Detecting the invisible is easier when you have full spectrum teams equipped with different life filters. Who codes matters. Encoding is a process that explicitly checks the impact of bias during the design, development, and deployment of coded systems. How we code matters. Encoding is a personal mission and an invitation to create a world with a culture of inclusion, a world where technology works for all of us and centers social change. No more masks.
I have.
Thank you for sharing, Cassie. I love that video. I love what Joy is doing so much because I think it's just a great example of what we hope we're able to get our youth to get the courage to do as well. So thank you for that. So as Cassie mentioned, being STEM is a crucial part of our curriculum framework, and it's very important because it really helps our girls and our gender expansive youth find that persistence that they need and that STEM identity and belonging when it comes to the work that they're doing in their STEM classrooms. This comes about because we recognize that our institutions don't adequately prepare nor create access to high quality STEM learning. Typically STEM opportunities from elementary up until high school for BIPOC communities, and they typically focus on rote learning, and a lot of the times, like Cassie mentioned, it focuses on those stock stories, right? That centers the white male experience. And it excludes the historical STEM contributions of women of color as well. So aside from the blatant discrimination that happens in the career fields, a lot of the underrepresentations that we see now stems from their childhood and the access or lack thereof from when they was in school, right? And all of this is very unfortunate because our girls, especially our BIPOC girls and gender expansive youth, are brilliant and they have very fresh perspectives that they can bring into the STEM fields. Because of their unique life experiences, they are able to provide groundbreaking discoveries in STEM, but they're just not given the opportunity to. And research shows this, right? Research shows that when there's a diverse group, whether it's in just STEM academic fields or in the career fields, the diverse groups have better cognition and problem solving ability than white groups. There's also an enhanced educational outcomes in pedagogy and increased innovations. And again, just to be clear, the disparity isn't there because BIPOC girls and gender expansive youth aren't interested. There's actually research that shows otherwise. There's research that shows when girls between the age of 14 and 17 who identify as BIPOC, when they're asked, they're more likely to indicate that they are interested in STEM. So it's not there because they're just not interested, right? So that's our why. That's why we focus on being STEM, but this is how we do it. You'll see on the next slide. Parts of the ways we do this is, again, by highlighting their needs to belong in STEM. And we do that through STEM through stories, like you just saw with Joy's story, right? All of our curriculum currently is centered around stories just like Joy's. And then we have the asset-based approach that we take, where we start with their genius. We're not starting with the stats. Like if you can see when I just talked about our why a little bit, I tried to refrain from all of the stats. We know that there's an underrepresentation, right? We know that they're not being treated fairly. But instead of starting with those stats, we're going to start with their genius. We're going to start with why STEM need our BIPOC girls and gender expansive youth, right? And then lastly, we do this. We are able to achieve being STEM and that STEM belonging through role models. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we do each of these things. Starting with STEM through stories. Again, I don't have to go too deep into it because you just saw Joy's story. So with that, we talk about BIPOC STEM lineage and the ways that STEM has come from BIPOC cultures, and we disrupt that dominant narrative, right? That stock story. And we do so by sharing quotes, by sharing stories like Joy in our curriculum, and give our youth the opportunity to do amazing things like code, right? They're able to code in different languages and things like that. And then we have I think it's, okay, here we go. Thank you, Cassie. So again, this is one of the quotes that we would share with our youth that highlights her story, Joy's story. And this is done in our middle school program, the Change Makers. And again, youth are able to code a chatbot that speaks their own language and learn about that work that Joy does through AI. And then an example of what we do with Inspire, our elementary school program, is we would highlight amazing young lady like Zai Bastida and the work that she does in Mexico. And then we're going to talk a little bit, Cassie's going to take over and talk a little bit about our asset-based approach part of things then.
Sure thing. Thanks, Cynthia. All right, so let's take a couple minutes to brainstorm all the words people use to describe BIPOC tween girls. So I'm thinking all the words, not just the words that you would use to describe, but the words you've also heard other people use to describe BIPOC tween girls. Again, get your device out if you have one, scan this code, or you can open up another window on the browser and type slido.com and type in 735944. All right, I see boy crazy. Let's see, creative. Hilarious. Divas, loud. Ooh, they're coming in fast. Full of attitude, dramatic, lazy, at risk. Dare I say creative? Creative. At risk again. And if you put one word in, put more in. You're more than welcome to put more than one word. Fierce, misunderstood, hilarious, delinquent, full of life. Oh, that one got a couple of them. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating in this. Any other words that you've heard people use to describe? All right, as these words are coming in, let's think about using some of these deficit-based words to design programming. So let's use the words like full of attitude, lazy, at risk, boy crazy, delinquent. Let's use those words to design programming for BIPOC tweens and imagine what that programming would look like. What are girls doing in your program if you've designed an activity or a programming around those words? And you can type in the chat or you can unmute your microphone. What are girls doing in programs that have been created using the words loud, dramatic, delinquent? Sit down, don't touch that. Someone typed in the chat. Less room for creativity, absolutely. Yeah, if they're going to be delinquent and dramatic, we don't want them touching things they shouldn't touch, right? Sit down and do the worksheet. Yeah. Thank you. So at Techbridge Girls, we don't want to use those deficit-based words or those negative statistics that Cynthia was alluding to earlier to develop our programming. Instead, we want to center BIPOC girls and gender expansive youth unique positioning to change the world of STEM. We want to ask, what can these girls do for STEM, right? Not what can STEM do for these girls. These girls come to the table with genius. So how do we harness that genius and create programming that accelerates them, that gives them opportunities to make a difference? So you wrote in here some things that youth might be doing when you walk into a room that's centered around deficit-based language. What does it look like when you walk into a room that centers asset-based language? Like, what was the creative? I'm trying to think of what the words were. We can go back one, I think. Whoopsies. Should still be there. Full of life, creative, hilarious, energetic. What does that room look like? There's innovative ideas, real world problem solving. That's right. Giving opportunities for girls to solve problems that they care about. It looks like a lot of fun. There's some brainstorming happening. There's engineering design process happening. Wonderful. Active, that's right. You're not afraid of them touching things because they're going to be full of attitude and energetic and delinquent, right? It's going to be messy, loud, and fun. Yeah, we already said they're going to be loud, right? We know that. So yes, it's mindset. It's changing our mindset. And that's how we design our programs at Techbridge Girls.
So another way that we try to incorporate our being STEM portion of our curriculum framework is by engaging role models. By engaging role models, well, before we even go into that, let us do like a little quick reflection. So think back to when you were a child, a tween or teen. Who was a role model for you, and what about this person made you want to emulate them? Where were some of the commonalities that they had with you? Let's just take a second to think about that. And you can write your responses in the chat, or you could also unmute yourself. I know for me, when I think of role models, I thought of, there are so many, but there is no doubt that the people that I looked up to when I were younger looked a lot like me, right? So they were folks who were probably also of the Nigerian descent. Or in addition to that, I like loved tennis shoes, right? So they were probably also rocking a pair of Jordans every now and then, but they were also very brilliant, right? They were also able to just make powerful moves, right? So you can be a quote unquote fashionista and have wild hair, but still be powerful in your career, or still make honor roll, right? And get all these different types of awards in school, right? You didn't have to, I don't know, like be super submissive or calm in your expression in order to be successful. So that's what role models look like for me when I was younger. So what was that for you? Does anyone want to share? Okay, no worries, but do just keep that in mind as we go on through the rest of this, and just afterwards, if you ever try to, just as you're trying to bring in volunteers and role models into your classroom or in your space of work, do keep that in mind. And we're just going to talk a little bit about, again, why that's important. So by engaging our role models in STEM, it just becomes more tangible for our youth, kind of like what I just alluded to. It allows them to be able to make more personable connections with others that are in the STEM field. We just recently launched our Role Models Matter training, which equips STEM professionals with the skills that they need to effectively connect with youth during volunteering opportunities. And Mita and Anita is actually going to talk a little bit more about that now.
Thank you, Cynthia. We're really very proud about, well, let me just say that from our inception, we realized that the importance of getting role models in front of our girls. And research also backs up the fact that this is one of the central ways in which girls can see themselves in their future. Again, you can't kind of be it if you can't see it, and an important way is to have role models. And we realized that in order to have role models engage, we needed to train them. We needed to equip them so that these really caring adults who aren't in the business of working with young people every day could be equipped to do so in a way that didn't perpetuate biases, that where their information could be received well by young people. And so for all of those reasons, we, with a grant from the National Science Foundation, created a very special training back in 2012. And Cynthia mentioned that recently we were able to upgrade it substantially and added in more information around implicit bias and other pieces, because it just became very clear that we needed to make sure that those messages were being heard and that folks are being equipped. I have the great pleasure of having worked with Anita Miller from Chevron for now many years, right, Anita? And we have worked together to involve Chevron volunteers as one-on-one role models in groups at events. We have Chevron as part of our representation on our board, helping us thought leadership, et cetera. Well, Anita and I really love to figure out how to make sure that the training gets to the volunteers with whom she works, or the employees that she gets to volunteer. But I think I wanted to have you hear from her. And so I have a set of questions. If it's okay, Anita, I want to ask you. And maybe you could share a little bit from your perspective from the employer side, kind of what works. So, people, just kind of want to know what's in it for you. Why would Chevron be interested in volunteerism and engaging and allowing their employees to give of their time in this way? We heard what's right for girls, but what's in it for you?
Very well, it's several reasons, more than one, that's for sure. I mean, Chevron wants to give back, and we have a really diverse workforce. And, it's exciting to have our girls come to our campus and host a field trip. And even prior to that, work with Techbridge staff to build a very robust content. And so once the girls arrive, they feel special from the very start. They get to engage with our employees. They get to hear about different job areas. They also are able to hear how we're vulnerable. Looking back at a moment ago with the role model question, truthfully, I did not have a role model in school or growing up other than my parents. And it's unfortunate because I struggled with math. I even had a math tutor in college. And so, if I could have only been a Techbridge girl years and years ago. So the girls, when they come to campus, they feel as if they're getting this exposure to different education paths. They're learning about different job areas. Who knew that Chevron has doctors and IT specialists and lawyers? And then they get office tours so they can actually see where people work, our cafeteria, get the buzz and the feel of that. And we also work with them, and they're not even realizing this is happening, but we're working with them with table etiquette and also public speaking, and sort of getting out of your shell and just having this great dialogue with both men and women, because it's not just women volunteers that participate in our year-round volunteering. We have men, a group of men that we call Men Advocating Real Change, and they support all of our women in our company. And we also have all levels of employees, not just executives. We have all levels. We have our office in San Ramon as an example, and then our office, our refinery in Richmond. We also have engineers and scientists that come join our field trips there as well. And now, of course, with the virtual world, we've had people from international areas being able to participate where they were not once even exposed to that. So it's really, we kind of look at how can we continue to make this experience for girls robust and give them the opportunity to, like you said, Nita, they can't be what they can't see. So give them that opportunity to explore.
Thank you, Anita. I know we had few more questions, but we are a little bit at time. So I'm gonna, with your permission, hand it over to Cynthia to help close us out. Thank you, Anita, so much for everything you do.
Thank you.